Hello, and welcome to the Fighting Moose Podcast. I'm your host and narrator, Jason Hendrickson. This is a podcast where I retell stories, some fictional and some historical, that can be enjoyed by people of all ages. So last night, I was laying in bed when John came up next to me and said,
Dad, can you do a story about Mr. and Mrs. Trout for the next podcast?
To which I said, sure. So this morning, we had an early morning, and I said, how about the story, The Tale of Tommy Trout Who Didn't Mind, from the book Old Mother West Wind, written by Thornton W. Burgess. To which he said,
Yes.
So here we are, with today's episode. It's a little short, but when the little dude asks for a story, I like to accommodate as best I can. Coming up in a little under 2 weeks, we have Independence Day here in the United States, and also our friends to the north celebrate their Independence Day on July 1st in Canada. So if your family is like ours, we are going to have some family time and enjoy each other's company. If you do end up getting together, I hope you enjoy the time together and getting some good quality family time. Now, let's turn to today's story. I hope you enjoy. Let's begin.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
The Tale of Tommy Trout Who Did Not Mind. In the laughing brook, which rippled and sings all day long, lived Mr. Trout and Mrs. Trout, and a whole lot of little trouts. There were so many little trouts that Mr. Trout and Mrs. Trout were kept very busy indeed getting breakfast and dinner and supper for them, and watching out for them and teaching them how to swim and how to catch foolish little flies that sometimes fell on the water, and how to keep out of the way of big hungry fish and sharp-eyed Mr. Kingfisher and big men and little boys who came fishing with hooks and lines. Now, all the little trouts were very, very good and minded just what Mrs. Trout told them, all but Tommy Trout. For Tommy Trout, oh dear, dear, Tommy Trout never could mind right away. He always had to wait a little instead of minding when he was spoken to. Tommy Trout didn't mean to be bad. Oh dear, no. He just wanted to have his own way, and because Tommy Trout had his own way and didn't mind Mrs. Trout, there isn't any Tommy Trout now. No, sir, there isn't as much as one little blue spot of his beautiful little coat left because, why, just because Tommy Trout didn't mind. One day, when round red Mr. Sun was shining and the laughing brook was singing on its way to join the big river, Mrs. Trout started to get some nice plump flies for dinner. All the little trouts were playing in their dear little pool safe behind the big rock. Before she started, Mrs. Trout called all the little trouts around her and told them not to leave their little pool while she was gone, for, she said, something dreadful might happen to you. All the little trouts, except Tommy Trout, promised that they would surely stay inside their dear little pool. Then they all began to jump and chase each other and play as happy as could be, all but Tommy Trout. As soon as Mrs. Trout had started, Tommy Trout swam off by himself to the edge of the pool. I wonder what is on the other side of the big rock, said Tommy Trout. The sun is shining and the brook is laughing, and nothing could happen if I just go a little speck of a ways. So, when no one was looking, Tommy Trout slipped out of the safe little pool where all the other little trouts were playing. He swam just a little speck of a ways farther still. Now he could see almost around the big rock. Then he swam just a little speck of a ways farther and, oh dear, dear, he looked right into the mouth of a great big fish called Mr. Pickerel, who is very fond of little trouts and would like to eat one for breakfast every day. "Aha!" said Mr. Pickerel, opening his big mouth very wide. Tommy Trout turned to run back to the dear safe little pool where all the other little trouts were playing so happily, but he was too late. Into that great big mouth he went instead, and Mr. Pickerel swallowed him whole. "Ah," said Mr. Pickerel, "I like little trouts." And nothing more was ever heard of Tommy Trout, who didn't mind.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fighting Moose Podcast. Please join us next time as we read another exciting story. Today's music was provided by the artist Analog by Nature, and the audio clips were provided from NASA. For more information to download and or listen to audio or materials from all our recordings, or to contact us, please visit www.thefightingmoose.com, or you can follow the links in the show notes. And as always, try and do a random act of kindness every day.
Mission complete, Houston. After serving the world for over 30 years, the space shuttle's earned its place in history, and it's come to a final stop.